Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner, Precinct 1.
Present.
Wynn, Commissioner, Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Bickus, Commissioner, Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner, Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitute a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Reverend Raul Gutierrez from Western Hills United Methodist Church. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let us pray. Most holy God, we are thankful for life, and we're thankful for location where we live. We're thankful for our county, Tarrant County, for its governance, for its people, for the community that represents who we are. On this County Commissioners meeting, we ask for your guidance and your presence. Give us wisdom, O God, so that we may be sensitive to the concerns of the people. Give us wisdom, O God, so that the decisions that are made benefit the common good. Help this be a place where the public square and your guidance and your presence come together. Yes. Help us to do the best for the people we serve. For it is in your holy name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Reverend, for being here today. Good to speak to you. Agenda announcements, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have two announcements relating to the agenda this morning. It's under the County Administrator section. First one is item 8A1. This is concerning a resolution regarding the state web portal. There is revised court communication in your red folder this morning. Also, members of the court, when we get to item number A3, the agreement between the county and the Council of State Governments, we're going to ask that we hold that for 1 week. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Members of the court, the only change on that first item is that if you look at the fiscal impact, we've worked with the clerk's offices, and at first we were under the impression that that might be about $500,000 in lost revenue. Clerk believes that that number is actually about $1 million in lost revenue. So that's the only change on that. And we'll discuss that when we get to that particular item on the agenda.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of January the 10th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Now we come to our proclamations and resolutions, and I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Wynn to kind of begin this and start it out.
Thank you, Your Honor, and fellow commissioners. This morning we have the honor of welcoming a delegation from the province of Kampong Speu, from the Kingdom of Cambodia. And I'd like to introduce those members who are present with us, and I'll do my best to pronounce your name correctly, okay? So if I made a mistake, please forgive me. I tried to pass the responsibility on to our county judge, but
And he promptly refused.
he lateraled it back to me.
And so I'm going to sit here and enjoy the opportunity to listen to other folks.
We have Mr. Ve Samnang, the Kampong Speu provincial governor. We have Mr. Nguyen Viasna, the Odong district governor. Mr. Hong Chan Sokla, the chief of public works and transportation. Mr. Tan Boon Tha, the Chief of Economic and Finance. Mr. O Van Tan, the Chief of Health. Mr. Tree Vandy, the Chief of Treasury. Mr. Nyao Sambo, Chief of Commercial. Mr. Tap Malay, Chief of Land Management, Urban Planning and Construction. Mr. Hong Mui Hang, Chief of Bureau, Department of Personnel. Mui Hang has visited us last year. And Mr. Chien Kim Shrang, Chief of Tax Branch. And accompanied the delegation is Mr. Bob Hart, the City Manager of the City of Cannondale, and Ms. Kelly Cooper, the Director of Human Resources of the City of Cannondale. I'd like to invite Mr. Bob Hart along with Mui Hang to come forward and make any comment with the court if possible, please.
Judge and members of the court, we appreciate your recognition for our delegation today. This is a follow-up to the two young men that we had here about a year and a half ago. And so we're spending a week looking at government services in this area. When we talk about a provincial government, there are 24 provincial governments within the Kingdom of Cambodia. It encompasses about 850,000 population, about 60,000 square kilometers. I haven't converted that to miles. And then within the province, there are 7 districts. So I think that at least my understanding is it's very similar with the kingdom as being the federal level. The province would be equivalent to the state level. And then I think the districts, there are 7 districts within the province that are probably comparable to the precincts within the county. At least that would be my understanding. And so we appreciate very much your recognition and your time with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Good morning, the court. Good morning, everyone here.
Good morning.
As a representation of the group of delegation of Kampong Speu province, I would like to express my profound thanks to everyone for warm welcome us. I would like to tell you a little bit about Cambodia. We have a population of 15 million, so it's about half of Texas population. But we are from a very small country that in Southeast Asia. Yeah. And you know about Angkor Wat, right? It's a 7th wonder of the world. This is our first time for the 9 delegation here in the United States. We come here to study because they are as a local government in Cambodia. We come here to learn a lot of things, but in a very short time, about the civic engagement, about economic development, about the city development, urban planning, waste management in the city of Cannondale, and we have a very privilege to have Bob Hart to coordinate our trip in Texas as well as in Tarrant County. It is my second time here. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohan. And Your Honor, I also have the pleasure of would like to introduce to you all 3 of our young people, future leaders of Tarrant County, from the Arlington ISD, who are interning with my office and Judge Mary Tom Connett. First of all, Evan O'Dwyer, she is a senior at Arlington High School, and she hopes to attend Oklahoma State University to study political science and nonprofit business. So that's Evan. Also, Serene Nadav. She's a senior at Martin High School. She hopes to attend University of Texas at Arlington. There you go. Good decision. To study humanities and international relations. And Sandon Fernandez. He interns for Judge Mary Tom Cannut. And he is a senior at Martin High School. And he hopes to go to UT or Texas A&M, right? He is interested in studying international law. Well, welcome. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Welcome again to all of those who visited with us today. We appreciate you being here. We hope you have a great visit. I feel certain that if you are in need of anything, if there's anything that we can, any questions that we can answer for you, that we'll do that. And if you have any problems, get with him.
And I'll call him.
And he'll call me. And we'll work it out and make sure that we can give you any assistance we can give you. We'll be more than glad to do that. And for the 3 interns, congratulations. Have a great senior year. And enjoy college wherever you go, but certainly at UTA. So, again, thank you all very much.
And Your Honor, I'd like to thank all the elected officials and the county personnel who took the time this morning to come out and welcome our delegation. Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have a proclamation.
I do. It is a proclamation in honor of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which was held on yesterday. The proclamation has been presented at a parade and rally on Sundance Square Plaza on yesterday. It was a beautiful day, a beautiful celebration coordinated by Mr. Roderick Miles, Jr., and I ask for ratification of this proclamation.
We have a motion, a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have a resolution.
I do, and we're very fortunate today to have members of the Richland High School marching band. Being a former band member and then a band parent, I fully understand what band's all about, and that's really what happens at a football game. You get a little bit of game before and the game after, but the halftime's what it's really all about, as us band parents know. So we have today with us 2 of their band directors, and I'll have them come up in a moment, but Jason Bird and Mike Pickrell. But we'll start off, whereas the Richland High School Marching Band under the leadership of band director Jason Bird, and that's Bird for Birdville, isn't it?
I'm sure it is.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
Except that they're from Richland.
Well, but that's part of the Birdville School.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Don't be messing with me. And Principal Carl Ricks have distinguished himself by achieving an outstanding award season. And whereas Richland High School Marching Band achieved the following awards at their HEB marching contest: first place, Class 5A; second place, finalist; outstanding percussion, Class 5A; outstanding general effects, Class 5A; and outstanding percussion finalist. And whereas Richland High School Marching Band achieved the following awards in their HEB drumline contest: second place, 6A advanced. And whereas Richland High School Marching Band achieved the following awards at their Lone Star preview: first place, Class 3A; outstanding music, Class 3A; outstanding visual, Class 3A; outstanding general effects, Class 3A; outstanding auxiliary, Class 3A; outstanding percussion, Class 3A; grand champion, outstanding music finals, and outstanding general effects finals. And whereas Richland High School Marching Band achieved the following awards at their Tournament of Champions: second place, outstanding percussion and outstanding general effects; and Whereas the Richland Marching Band was recognized for their outstanding performance in the BOA Super Regionals in St. Louis by obtaining third place Class 3A and eighth place finalists out of 65 bands from all over the United States. And whereas the high standard of professionalism displayed by all the band members throughout the award season has brought honor and pride to the Birdville Independent School District. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, join with the students and citizens of the Birdville Independent School District in congratulating the members of the Richland High School Marching Band on their outstanding achievements in witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed the 17th day of January 2017. Band kids rock, okay?
I'll second. That's the way he moved approval. I'll second.
Thank you, Judge.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations very, very much.
Come on.
As a fellow band kid, I congratulate you all.
We're going to present this to y'all, and then you can probably give it to your directors, and then we're going to turn around and take a photograph.
Yeah, let Fickus get in there someplace.
Yeah, let me get in here somewhere.
There you go. Respect your elder.
Get on in here.
Yeah, he's the elderest.
John, we'll say a few words. Two of these are drum majors. Reggie?
Excellent.
Judge, Court, thank you so much. Birdville Independent School District, Richland High School Band, we believe music education is important to all the children in our community for their growth and leadership in this community. And just like I grew up in Birdville ISD, and bands shaped me, music shaped me my whole life to what I want to do. And I'm hopeful that we can influence, as teachers, as the county and the cities, that we can influence our students to grow as leaders and musicians, to become great citizens of our community. So thank you for their recognition. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will echo what Commissioner Fickus says. Whenever we go to a football game, my wife will, kind of move around and talk with folks until halftime. And she sits down and she watches the halftime. She was a band member, and it really is a great opportunity to develop, a team attitude and working together with other individuals. And I think those types of activities in our school are as important, if not more important, than everything else, all of the other learning and teaching that goes on. So again, congratulations. I know those awards were not received without a lot of hard work. I know in the summer, and we are several blocks away from Bell High School, but we hear those marching bands start about 6 a.m. in the morning. And then we usually hear them at the end of the evening when they're doing their two-a-days. And so it's a lot of work, and we appreciate that, and congratulations again. With that, we're going to move on to the recognition of our 2016 Leadership Development Program. And I'm going to call on Larry Wilson to come forward and to hand out our awards, certificates.
This is the 14th year that we've been doing this program. We have a group of people lined up for number 15 starting next week. So we're recognizing the group today. I will call their names and have them come up and make a line around the front of the podium here. Christopher Burns from Facilities Graphics. Johnny Baldamaris. Also facilities and graphics. Janet Chase, information technology. Jamaica Drips, whoops. I'm sorry, but Judge, I'm having a Whitley moment here. So. Jamaica Drissel from Juvenile Services.
Be careful, those could be short-lived moments.
Sheila Geis, Public Health. Joseph Martin, Information Technology. Sally Rodriguez, Precinct 1. Jessica Southwick, Information Technology. Kara Spinella, Community Supervision. William Wessel, Administrator's Office. That's the group.
Congratulations again, and thank y'all very much for the effort that you put forward in this area and working with the county. So. I think it's the camera.
It is.
It'll take that battery a while to build up. Congratulations again. I would move that we receive and file this, the leadership recognition.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two items for your consideration yet this morning. The first one is consideration of a resolution as it relates to the state web portal in reference to Search Texas. I'm going to ask Mr. Wilder to come forward and discuss this particular item with you. This is an item that both the county and the district clerk have requested that the court consider.
Judge and Commissioners, I do want to let you know that both the county clerk and the district clerk are fully supportive of this. Mary Louise asked me to make the presentation today. I might also add that both of the state associations, the District Court Alliance as well as the County and District Clerks Association, have passed resolutions and have sent them to legislators and others opposing this particular procedure. I'll give you the short answer first and then be happy to answer questions in more detail if you wish. Basically, the proposal to centralize record keeping in Austin and make it available down there at a price, it won't be for free. I anticipated what happened several years ago when e-filing occurred and all e-file documents were routed through Austin before they would come to the respective clerks. We have now got documented evidence that that is their intent. I have it with me today. We have no county savings that would occur from this. Just like on e-filing, the county expenses went up. Both the county clerk and our agreement are in agreement about that. As you know, we get no revenue from e-filing. The $30 fee all goes to the Office of Court Administration. It doesn't even go to the state. That's where this fee would go. The vendor would be in control of as they are now, of the e-filing. This would be part of their branching out and growing bigger. The Commissioner's Court would be bypassed. There's a statute that says that you control the fee for the online. The clerks are the custodians of the records, and they have the authority to control public access. So you have the fee, and the clerks have the custodial prerogative based upon the state statutes and the constitutional authority of the clerks. When there are various violations of statutory authority of the county and the clerks, which is recited in part within the resolution, and our request today, clerks all over the state are approaching their commissioner's court last week and this week, and then we have a meeting Thursday that will discuss how successful we are. And I would very much like to keep local control over this, follow the statutes that the legislature has put in place, and not defer to a centralized authority at the Office of Court Administration. So I respectfully ask for your approval of this resolution today.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Tom.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 2, Ms. McMillan is going to present that particular item.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners.
Good morning.
The Commissioners Court has requested to approve the use of tax-exempt financing by the Orchard Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corporation in the maximum amount of $8,500,000 to be used by Carter Blood Care to finance certain facilities located in Tarrant County and other locations in Texas. The purpose of these loan is to refinance existing debt, which was used to fund the capital expenditures for improvements to the Carter Blood Care in Bedford, Texas on Highway 121, and also a location located in Woodway, Texas. As you know, in order for the transaction to qualify as tax exempt under the IRS code, the governmental entity in which a facility is located must also approve the transaction. The public hearing and all notices have been done, and Carter Blood Care has also provided a letter to the county noting no known property restrictions and acknowledging the county's HUD policy guidelines. We're asking for your approval of the loan.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
Okay.
No, we still have one more.
Did we take item 3 off the agenda?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Sorry about that. We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have one additional item, that's item number 2. We're asking the court to approve 2 waivers of terminal benefits for the 360th District Court. Judge Bennett is requesting 2 waivers, as I mentioned, one for an outgoing court coordinator, the other for an outgoing court reporter. The net costs to the general fund for both these requests we're estimating to be approximately $10,000, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have 2 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2017-035, a bid for the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center 7th and 8th floor inmate holding cell elevator alteration project. Recommendation be toward the Thyssen-Krupp elevator in the amount of $195,865. If approved, we're seeking contract approval, acceptance of the payment, and performance bond.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Phillips, are these the same outfit that does the elevators in the parking garage?
Yes, sir.
Are they doing better with the parking garage elevators?
Yes, sir.
So we're up and working and not had any problems? Because I've had a couple of people who got to spend a little time in those elevators. Okay. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is in...
One's about to shoot it. Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Bid award recommendation for bid 2017-036, which is for the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center 7th and 8th floor inmate holding cells project. Recommendation be toward the low bidder, Imperial Construction Incorporated, amount of $1,570,000.
Nope.
$1 billion?
About $1 million.
Yes, million will work, billion will not.
Did I say billion?
Yeah. We ain't spending that much on a floor.
He's from Arkansas.
$1,570,000.
1 million. Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Million. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Had an opportunity to meet with the Cambodian delegation. It's nice to be proud and represent a foreign country also.
Arkansas?
Yeah, that's about as foreign as you can get. Well, they probably run a close second with Louisiana. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have an interlocal
I do
agreement.
have an interlocal with the city of Asset, and I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Appointments. I don't know if we need the appointment as an alternate. We're going to check on this. But just on the happenstance, and we'll come back to it. On February the 8th, there is a workforce governing board meeting, and I have an opportunity to chair that, but I'm not going to be able to make it that day. And I think in addition, you've got a company within your precinct that's getting some award, and we're going to be there. So with y'all's approval, and I'll move that we, appoint Commissioner Wind as our alternate for that workforce governing board meeting.
Second.
We have motion second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. I hope you knew that.
Yes. I've heard of it.
Okay.
Hopefully I get a pay raise with that.
Yeah, you do. You'll get double what I get.
Well.
You get double what I get for attending and being a part of that meeting. Court members, you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one briefing item this morning. This is the monthly update from the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you, Commissioners. Commissioner
Happy New
Wynn.
Year, Robert.
Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Commissioner Wynn, if you would please communicate to the Cambodian delegation that Jack Beecham is not an official representative of Arkansas or Texas. It might help them, just for international clarity's sake.
Muhang, can you please translate right now? That Jack Beecham is not.
Make sure you point to him.
We don't claim him. Arkansas don't claim him, and
You can have him.
you can have him. In fact, we'd be glad to send him back as a delegate.
Stay there, don't speak. My briefing today will be a little bit shorter because not only the holidays, but we had the transition of a new board chair, and so those are generally lighter meetings. We had a nice ceremony for Pastor Emerson and his work and his dedication and where he led JPS. I think that Pastor Emerson did a very good job of leading JPS, and I think he brought people together. And I think that Mr. Powell will continue in that same tradition of putting people together and moving forward. So we have our new slate of officers with Mr. Powell as chair, Dr. Chuck Weber as our vice chair, and Mr. D.T. Wynn as our secretary. Mr. Wynn has also been appointed as our liaison to the foundation board, which I think will be helpful. And I think that will add a new dimension to the foundation board as well. And I think those are good. So that transition went very smooth. I will tell you, commissioners, in all due respect, that you have appointees that want to work for the hospital district and want to work for our patients. I think our board is working very, very well, and I'm proud to serve them and our patients. That transition was a really good transition. So also wanted to thank you as commissioners for the town hall meetings you conducted. I appreciate the information that you put out, sharing with the community, talking about JPS. All those town hall meetings can always be a profitable situation for us, and that we can pick up new insights, new ideas in dealing with things. And I appreciate your efforts, and I look forward to the HMA report and working with them. Thus far, HMA has been a really professional group to work with. They've worked with our staff on a daily basis. The amount of time that they give us and the amount of time that they've taken to find out the answers and go through the process has been very impressive. You all, with the work of Mr. Manias, I can assure you hired the right group, because they're very good at what they do. We also now are live streaming on our own. We're standing on our own, and our first meeting went without very few hitches. They did a really good job. We're still having a little bit of issues with some of our microphones, but those will be fixed. I'm really proud of the team. The team did a good job, and we are up and about. And I want to thank Mr. Manias and his team, because that was the foundation by which we worked off of. We couldn't have done that without his help and without the team here from the county. So we are live streaming on our own, and I think it's going really well. We will also have, as you all have, the capability to show things live on our live streaming and scroll through the agenda and everything else, so people know where we are if they're live streaming us. Also, we'll have all the presentations live streaming. We didn't have that at our first meeting because we didn't have PowerPoint presentations. But in sequential continuous meetings, we'll have those that will be live streamed so that everybody can see what we're doing in the room. We also have 6 monitors around the room that are 6 independent monitors where we can have different information up. We'll try to put our votes up there as well, so that, very much like y'all have, so we can have an idea of people who are in the audience or people watching. We're working through those. But it's a process advancing. I feel really good about it, and I appreciate y'all's support of that.
You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and get notification of when the meeting takes place.
Yes.
It's very exciting. It's like watching C-SPAN.
Yes. Well, we want to be on that same level of excitement for our people. That's our goal, is to be as exciting as C-SPAN. Also want to let you know that the storms did wreak some havoc upon us. It was challenging. We lost electrical power, and we lost all telephone and IT capabilities at our cancer center. So we scrambled yesterday to do everything we possibly could to rearrange appointments, to get people in. By midday, we had most of the appointments either contacted the patients or rescheduled appointments, but that center was down totally. And the team at JPS did a good job of doing everything they could to get things back up and working. Everything today is back up at 100%, and we have no permanent damage. But yesterday was a bit of a struggle, and it's hard sometimes communicating with people the day of. And we, of course, didn't realize that power was totally down. We knew it at 3 o'clock in the morning, but it's really difficult. That's not the time you want to call your patients. So it was a bit of a challenge, but we are up, running, and doing well with no permanent damage. So I want to thank you all. I'm happy to answer any question that you might have. Yes?
Robert, could you, either here or later, give me an update on where we are on the clinic there on Highway 10?
Yes, be happy to. We've been out there, and we've met with Ms. Kidwell and her group, but we'll definitely give you an update. We'll do that, and then what I'll probably do is give you an individual update and your staff, and then next time I come to the court, we'll give the court an update as well, to give you an idea of where that is and where we're going.
Okay.
That'll be fine. Thank you.
One disadvantage, we appreciate very much y'all streaming and going, live with that. I think that's a great deal. But we kind of miss the chocolate cookies, or at least one of us misses the chocolate cookies down here when you have your board meetings.
Understand.
So,
For that one person who might have that interest, we'll see what we can't do. I make no promises.
I appreciate that.
But thank you all very much.
If
Appreciate
you
it.
give it to one, you better give it to all.
Does all include you?
buddy.
No, I'm the oatmeal raisin guy.
Okay. Well, let's get our priorities straight.
Members of the court, that's all we have. I would like to remind the court that we do have a work session this afternoon following the closed meeting, and it will be held in 504C.
One thing I would like to say before we adjourn or recess, last week we had our Conference of Urban Counties Education conference. Commissioner Brooks was one of our keynote speakers, as was Matt Chase, who is the executive director of NACO. And this year's president, one of the things that he is trying to accomplish during his term is to identify what he calls the 100 top projects or the top programs that our individual counties are doing around the country in an effort to where, we all face the same problems. Now, the way we may approach those or solve those may be different, but at least to identify some of the solutions that we have. And as I said and listened to both Roy as well as Matt bring those up and talk about that, I thought of some of the programs that we're doing. MHMR, we have the 24/7 liaison or hotline that officers can talk to, and then they train through that. Public health has programs. The courts, Greg, have many different programs that we have implemented that help not only some of the individuals trying to work their way through the system, but also in keeping our jail from going over capacity. I know that many years ago they worked on this project together, and it has resulted in us staying at about 65% of capacity, where most of your urban counties are over 100% of capacity. TechShare is one of our IT type projects that we kind of, along with Dallas County, helped to initiate. It has been and is becoming an even more successful project. I'm excited in the future about they're beginning to start a jail management type program, and I think that there's some real opportunities with that. But I would really like to, the reason I mention all this is to say to all of your departments, to all of the elected officials, to go back and look at some of the programs which they feel have been started here and have really been particularly effective in dealing with the public and dealing with different problems. And innovative. And go to NACO's website and let's fill out programs. It wouldn't hurt for us to have 10 or 15 different programs that are submitted, and hopefully we'll have several that would be selected. So I'm proud of the work that we do in Tarrant County. I'm proud of the work that our departments, that our elected officials do, and I think we've gotten credit before with TAC, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to also get recognized for some of the great work that we do at the national level. So I hope each one of you will look at that, go to NACO's website and see what is required to do that, but I think we can do that and can be well represented. With that, I'll recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
Members of the court, this is the second RFP dealing with the JPS Health Network and the futuristic views of both health care delivery and facilities. This particular RFP is going to deal with the facilities end of it. And we had, purchasing had led on this, but we had submitted proposals out to the street, or requests out to the street. We received 6 of those back. We reviewed them internally with the team from JPS, from Tarrant County, both the purchasing department and also the Administrator's Office and Facilities. And we are bringing you today the two finalists. The first one is coming, and I believe they have a PowerPoint presentation or a presentation that they're going to make. As we go through this, normally what our policy is, or what our strategy is that we will ask questions both during the presentation and also after the presentation. Absolutely. So if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Do we have evaluation forms that we're eventually going to be asked to fill out?
We have those.
I'd like to have them at least as
Okay.
we start the process out instead of waiting till.
And I will apologize to purchasing. They had those, and they had those available, and I said for them to hold them until we started. So
We started.
yes, sir, we did.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brooks is not going to be with us. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I absolutely want to thank the Commissioners Court, Terry County, and also John Paul Smith, JPS, for having us here. We're excited about being able to present some of the background that we have and the expertise in terms of completing the work that's as part of the RFQ. In terms of who we are, wanted to do three things. Wanted to give you a little bit of background on myself and my partner here. We want to talk about the key team members, the companies that are kind of key to the process as we see it, and then kind of some of our supporting cast. So with that, my name is Bill Fowkes. I'm the National Vice President for healthcare for Cumming Corporation. Have been doing work in healthcare and projects for over 30 years. Majority of that in the healthcare industry. For the last 15 years, I've been doing consulting work for major healthcare organizations and county facilities such as yourself. So with that, I want to introduce Sam.
Thanks, Bill, and I just want to echo Bill's sentiments that we appreciate you having us here, and I'm excited to be here today to present our process to you for consideration. So my name is Sam Sears. I'm a founder and principal with Personal Health Advisors. I've been doing strategic management consulting for about 16 years now, and prior to that, I worked at a hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, academic medical center, part of the Partners Health System. So I'm familiar with working on the provider side as well.
Thank you. And with that, I wanted to hit on the kind of the three key firms that are part of our proposal. When we looked at the scope of work, it had a big, broad impact, and so we really felt like there were three key components to that, and three firms that really specialized in that. So, first of all, my company, Cumming Corporation, is a healthcare consulting company. We do both program management and cost estimating. Those are kind of our two key service lines. We've been doing that for over 20 years. We're a national company. We have 23 offices throughout the United States. Our key, we've got a number of major clients, including Kaiser Permanente, Loma Linda University Medical Center, the Medical School of South Carolina, to just name a few. This is right up our alley in terms of the type of work that we do all the time.
And let me just tell you quickly about Personal Health Advisors. So we, as I mentioned, are a strategic management consulting firm. Our work is exclusively for hospitals and health systems. We include physician groups in that as well. So we work only in the healthcare industry. As you kind of see our bullet points here, I actually want to emphasize the ambulatory optimization component there, because as you recall, looking at the RFP, one of the key questions in there is your network, and by network we mean both your hospital and your outpatient satellite locations, is that currently optimized for the future delivery of health care? And if not, where are the right locations? What is the right size of the network? What should that look like? So that's really an area of expertise for our firm. and I expect to sort of spend a lot of time on that during this process, making sure that occurs. And if I can just share a quick observation too, when I saw your video from your March 2016 where you were discussing this, one thing that really struck me in that was, you have not had a bond offering since 1985, and at that time, since that time, your population has doubled. At that time, you had one ambulatory site. You have over 60 now. If you think about, and there was a comment in there about how in your community, your patients are really looking at access. So if you think about this process here and what you've got on the table, really investing hundreds of $millions into a campus solution here, I think it's vitally important to think outside of that. In other words, that campus does not exist in a vacuum. So as we look at this process, we really want to look at the whole ecosystem and how you're delivering care for your community. So having a system that is optimized and set up, recognizing that the solutions can't just be campus solutions, they have to be community solutions. I think for us it's going to be a big focus in this engagement.
Thanks, Sam. One of the other representatives that was not able to be here because of the shift in dates was Mark Vaughn with WHR, so I'm going to do a quick introduction for them. They're a full-service architectural firm. They specialize in kind of the programming and planning aspects. Their role would be to really take a hard look at those components to the overall project. They're Texas-based. They have national experience, however, and we've worked with coming in this partnership. We've all worked together for over 10 years, and really kind of that's the impetus for us doing this assignment, because we've done a number of these in the past as well. I also wanted to acknowledge our supporting team. They include a pretty diverse group, several veteran-owned companies and one DBE company. In terms of what they're going to do for what they would be doing for you, we have teamed EEI and MEPCE together to do an evaluation of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems that needs to happen. MEPCE is probably a familiar name to you. They've been working with both Tarrant County and JPS for 20 years or so, and we're teaming them with EEI, which is really the foremost expert in terms of evaluation of high-level mechanical systems and electrical systems for healthcare and for the healthcare environment. This is really critical for us because any costs associated with projects, about 60% of the cost fall into the mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So we really wanted our experts to be able to come in and look at these systems and identify what needs to happen there. We also have co-architects, which has extensive experience in the public hospital setting. That's really going to be kind of double the amount of background that WHR has, and really kind of partner with WHR in terms of some of their evaluation. We also have two other key components are the medical equipment, and medical equipment. We have Roll-Off International that I've worked with for over 10 years as well, that will take a critical look at the medical equipment, and we'll talk more about that in a second. We've out of some of the conversations that we had previously, we've actually added TCOM, which is a premier IT consulting firm that has worked on facilities such as Parkland, Stanford, and Palomar. They're really kind of on the cutting edge in terms of what they look for from an IT system standpoint. And so we've actually added them onto our team as a key team member based on some comments and some conversations from our last meeting. Finally, Melio and Company is a firm that does bond consulting. As part of the RFQ, there was some part of the response for us was the potential for some consulting with respect to aligning the work that we're doing and HMA is doing with bonds, and so we wanted to include them as well to the extent that they're going to be needed.
Just be aware of the fact that as you're talking with folks, when you say TCOM,
yes,
without a picture on the wall, you are referring to a different organization that is remembered and a part of Tarrant County. So that will be confusing to people if they
Okay.
don't see. If you don't have a picture to go along with it, you better say this is not the TCOM
Okay.
that many of y'all may have been familiar
This
with.
is not the TCOM that many of you may have known.
Yeah, and to add to what Bill said, I think, part of the reason we brought this team together is we really wanted to bring the best in the business and bring that expertise to bear on this project. And the way we've set this up is that, we can flex resources as needed. Because I think, until you really dive into it, you don't know all the issues that are going to bubble to the surface. But we've created a process here where, we can flex and leverage that expertise as we needed to address issues in this. I think it's also important to note, and this isn't just a random team we brought together. We've all worked together extensively before. Cumming and Percival team members have worked together for more than 10 years. We're currently working on projects now. So this isn't a just sort of fly-by-night team. This is a team that's used to working together, used to leveraging that expertise across all industries. You can see from this sort of dot map, and so these are the locations of the offices of our team members. It brings a lot of national perspective to bear on this process. So, to some extent, to be honest, we really have sort of seen it all across all kinds of health systems, small hospitals, big hospitals, publicly owned hospitals, academic medical centers, really everything in there. We've seen all of that. And we also have local knowledge as well. So I think we can really bring our expertise to bear on this project and bring a lot of different viewpoints and really, frankly, bring best practices from the systems that we've seen across the country. I want to kind of go over some sample projects, and this really is just a sample. There's a lot more that we could talk about here, but we wanted to kind of cover some systems that I think hit all these different areas that need to be addressed in this master facility plan. And a couple in particular I think are important. I wanted to touch on here is these first two columns, really. So if you look at the county catchment, those are some of the public entities that we have done work for. So I think with that experience, working with Harris County Hospital District, a number of our team members, including myself, have worked for them in the past. A lot of that was around operationalizing the LBJ hospital and really working on patient flows and patient experience and family experience on their campus. We've done a lot of work, both Cumming and Percival, with Los Angeles County around addressing community needs and make sure that they are being met from facilities that were frankly antiquated before that. Walter Reed Medical Center, that was actually a project with Howard University as well to meet those needs. So we're used to those kinds of things. I also wanted to mention psych and rehab or behavioral health because as we look at what you're doing, I think that's a hugely important and really your mission to your community around behavioral health, I think is a very important piece of this. And as one of the things that struck me most about some of the plans to date already for the campus was really dividing that behavioral health unit and creating a zone for that on a campus with a different med-surg zone with a new inpatient tower. So thinking through those issues, I think is critically important. A couple of the systems on here, Ohio Valley and Pocono Health System, while those aren't public entities, those are sole community providers. So they have a mission to their community to really provide all those services to their community. And they were dealing with campuses that needed to be addressed from an investment standpoint. And behavioral health in both of those was a very important initiative, not just for what the campus solution is, but for what the whole community solution is. And then if you kind of go on some of these others, a lot of the sort of more kind of standard components of it, ambulatory care, facility analysis, MEP analysis, network planning, those have all been to varying degrees components of a lot of these projects. Thanks.
We had two sample projects, case studies, if you will, in our proposal, and so I just wanted to hit briefly on those because I think they're similar in terms of the nature of the facility and in terms of the services that we're planning to provide here. First one is Loma Linda University Medical Center, which is, as Sam mentioned, on a couple of others. This is a local catchment hospital for the community. We assisted them with about a $4 billion capital program, which included a $1 billion hospital, a psych hospital, and a number of medical office buildings throughout the county that they serve. UCSD, the Jacobs Medical Center, is another similar program where we worked with them in terms of the hospital, ambulatory buildings, and really were involved with that project from the preliminary programmatic stages and saw that all the way through from a cost, schedule, and project control standpoint all the way through to fruition. They opened up in October of last year. So, you know, for us, I think one of the key advantages that you see in a number of these projects, and the number that Sam talked about, the number that I'm talking about, they're things that we started out with, and we were able to draw from experience in terms of working with them at the beginning of the process all the way through the end of the process. So that really helps us in every phase. So I want to talk now about kind of our approach to how we would plan on doing this work, as well as a number of the tasks, specific tasks that we plan to do here. You know, actually, Sam's going to talk a little bit about the approach.
Yeah, I mean, just at a high level, you know, for one thing, we're ready to go right away. So, you know, we can get started immediately. We look at sort of you look at that second bullet, integrating the current JPS team as well as the consultants. So you have work that was completed in 2014. So obviously our task here isn't to duplicate any of that work, but to integrate it, to review it, to make sure it's meeting all of your current needs and future needs. You've got the HMA team that is currently on board, sort of wrapping up their engagement, but my understanding is they'll have a role in this throughout this. So I think how we set this up is going to be very important. So it's important right off the bat to set up a process that frankly sets you up for success. So we want to make sure the communication channels are there. We want to make sure the process is interactive and make sure it includes everything. We want to really make sure we delineate roles and responsibilities in this process so it's clearly understood who needs to be doing what. Again, we want to really make sure to be the best stewardship of your dollars, not to be duplicating any work that's done. So it's going to be very important that we capture that, understand that in the beginning, and sort of have a framework for getting all of this done. And then, of course, we will complete the project work on time and within the schedule as outlined in our proposal.
So a couple of specific tasks that we're going to be working on. You know, first of all, we need to see what you have, right? And we need to, as part of the RFQ, at us specifically to do some updates in terms of a facility evaluation. So we will be looking at the existing facility, not only from, as I mentioned previously, from a mechanical, electrical, plumbing standpoint, but also from the rest of the, you know, the rest of the building components, whether it's exterior, interior finishes, roofing, everything that matters about the building and everything that may have some cost associated with it. We're gonna look at. I think this, you know, the knowledge and the experience of the team members that we have here are really second to none, and we're going to be really focusing on this so that we can. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, so that as we go through kind of evaluation of a replacement versus renovate, we have a really good understanding of what you have today. I think that also rolls right into the medical equipment and the IT. There was, as part of the documents that we received, there was a existing or a medical equipment list. We see that being a few years old. There's been enhancements in terms of the types of equipment and the models, if you will, for equipment that are available today. That initial list was drawn off of a software called Atania. It's really good for putting together lists. You know, we definitely need to hone in on the costs associated with that list and what that looks like, because, you know, obviously those costs have changed over the years since that's happened. So those are kind of the key components in terms of what we're going to look at from the medical equipment standpoint. From the IT standpoint, it's not dissimilar. I mean, we're going to be looking at the head end equipment, what you have right now, talking to the key individuals about what systems you have, everything from the EMR, the electronic medical record systems, all the way through what systems you work operationally, and with our IT consultant, they really, you know, they're based in San Francisco. They have a great connection to that technology corridor that's there, and they're out there talking to, although they're not healthcare, they're out there talking to the Googles and Facebooks of the world to be able to find out what's coming, what's going to be next, and are incorporating that into their recommendations in terms of where you think you should go there.
Any questions so far?
When you talk about time, are you going to talk about your timeline as in your presentation?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to talk
I
a
have a
little
question
bit.
here.
Sorry, go ahead.
You just mentioned that your IT system consultant is from San Francisco.
Yes.
And he's not familiar with healthcare. Did you just say that?
No. The IT, they're very familiar with healthcare. They did all the work at Parkland. They are doing all the work for the new hospitals at Stanford. They've worked at Palomar Health, which is about the most technologically advanced hospital in the United States. And so that's all they do is healthcare, is work in the healthcare sector.
What is the name of the group?
It's TCOM, but not the TCOM that you know and don't love. All right?
The other TCOM.
The other TCOM. Yeah.
And this is, and I'm going to speak to this. This is a sort of program planning piece that's primarily going to be managed by the two architecture firms, WHR and Co. But this is really to address that question: does the key programming to date, and that is really your 2014 plan that I think brought us in Blue Cottage did, which has very detailed service programs, it has square footage programs, it outlines a vision for the campus. Does that programming really position you for success in terms of future needs of the campus? And I know a lot of what HMA is doing is looking at those future trends. So there needs to be a sort of a marriage of those two elements. So as our team reviews that, if you look at these kind of sub-bullets, I think the first four here are really kind of core components of any kind of programming review. Is it accurate? Is it compliant with codes? Are the rooms sized and the spaces sized appropriately? Is it efficient in terms of layout and throughput, et cetera? And sometimes that's just a question of dealing with what you have and the restrictions that you have, both capital and with the existing campus. As you look at those next two bullets, actually, as I walked and drove your campus, and when I do that, I always try to look at that through the lens of a patient, or I even like to think of it as a consumer now, because we're sort of moving into that age where patients are much more knowledgeable at healthcare and they're looking at it almost through a consumer lens. How does that patient or consumer experience your campus? So where are the access points? How does it flow? What is the wayfinding like? Because you go there, it's a big campus, it can be very intimidating. As I went there, my first impression was, where's the outpatient piece, where's that? And it's not abundantly clear unless you've been there before, where all those elements are. So I think as you look at the patient program, excuse me, the entire program forward, you need to think about those things in mind and make sure that the solution is going to deliver something like that. It also needs to be very dynamic. So if you look at that future flexibility piece, and I think you have that in there now on sort of initial glance, because some of the as you move services to the new tower, there's backfill space that's going to be available. So looking at that and thinking how that may be used in the future, is it a dynamic plan that has flexibility in it? I think that's going to be important as well. At the end of the day, what we want to do in this process, and I know I've said it before, but I want to say it again, we're not trying to redo everything or duplicate that. What we really want to do is identify the gaps. So is there any gaps in those planning based on the new work that's being done that need to be addressed? And if so, what are the solutions for that? So we will identify solutions. And again, those solutions may not be campus solutions. They may be off-campus solutions. So we will consider your entire network of sites in terms of thinking through solutions for any gaps that might be identified in this process.
When you handle your medical planning, do you look at the origination of the patient, where they come from?
Yes.
And how does that affect your planning? Not nationality. I'm talking about their residence.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. You're talking about how a patient goes through the campus, like
yeah, I mean, if
they come in from the ER, then they go for diagnostic.
I'm talking about their residential, where they live. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Do you take that into consideration?
Absolutely, because one thing that I think your community is going to want, so if you think of, so the residential areas of your community, and I would actually extend that to your physicians as well, because you want to understand how are the physicians using your campus and is it convenient for them and so forth. You know, you're going to have different types of populations in different areas of your market. You serve the entire county, and there's going to be, you know, a whole diverse population out there that's going to be different areas. Some of them it's going to be much more difficult to come into your campus just in terms of drive time and accessibility. So as we think about, and that's where I get to that whole ecosystem of patients, right? You need to think about access points for that. And not only, you know, do you create more convenient access points, so if they have something that's, say, not emergent, that's an urgent care, you really don't want them to be driving a half an hour to your campus. Frankly, you don't want them driving 5 minutes to your campus if they're going for inappropriate use in the ED. So all of those things will be looked at in terms of devising that and thinking through, you know, where are they located and how are they accessing the solution, and is that really the best solution for them?
So from a facility planning standpoint, can you share your opinion on a situation which we are facing, in which patients coming into an emergency room, they are in many ways commingled with non-emergency patients,
yep.
Right? So how do you design the facility to direct the traffic to improve the efficiency of the patient care?
Yeah, I mean, there's no straightforward answer to that question, but it's really a variety of things. Some of that is wayfinding, some of that is clinical care, and make sure, you know, triaging the patient as they come in and make sure they're going to the right spot. I think one thing you're doing, like I said before, when you're creating a separate behavioral health unit from the med-surg unit, things like that I think will make patient flow a lot easier and helping patients understand where they're going. I will also say that the solution isn't just the campus solution. I think you need to be thinking beyond that and creating points to essentially prevent patients who are using your system now, especially disruptive patients who don't need to be there, and trying to essentially set up a system that will prevent some of those patients coming. Let me give you a sort of quick example. I don't know if you're familiar with what they're doing in San Antonio with behavioral health. They're kind of being recognized as a model across the country. And that's a solution that isn't necessarily being driven by the health systems in San Antonio. It's being driven by the community. It involves education and training for the police force, for EMLs, for creating transitional care units. And what that's done is it's actually, if you look at the frequent flyers, by that I mean in behavioral health who are using that facility the most, they've actually reduced hospital stays by 2/3 by creating this entire community network, this sort of multifaceted approach to dealing with that community. And frankly, those are your most disruptive patients. So when those people are clogging up the ED, you know, it makes it more difficult for sort of standard med-surg patients who are coming through. It just makes it more difficult, and it increases wait times. If you can, so again, I think you need to look at approaches like that that impact the campus, but also campus solutions. It is going to be vitally important how you design your campus, and to some extent, you're not going to get rid of all of that, right? People are still going to inappropriately use the ED, but you need a solution that both steers them and triages them to the right part of the campus. And when it's a less acute or a less lower acuity type of patient, make sure they get into those outpatient centers. Make sure when they come to the campus that they know there's an outpatient treatment clinic that they can go to rather than sort of funnel everything through the ED. So I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but you know, it's a very complex issue that you need to make sure is being attacked from multiple fronts.
And I think the idea of the acuity is always a tough one, because you have the people that need the ED, that need that emergent care, and then you have the ones that can really utilize urgent care or would typically go to their physicians during regular business hours, but because a lot of those things happen after business hours, it's really that series of urgent cares is really something that and triage is, as Sam said, in terms of catching the folks to be able to redirect them to an urgent care as opposed to having them come into the emergency department.
What about inmates? How do you separate the inmates from the regular crowd and providing that sense of comfort and security, but still not jeopardizing the quality of care? How?
Yeah, you have to sometimes create back channels for that. And again, I would consider creating sort of transitional spaces that aren't necessarily going to be delivered on campus. But you know, you need to create protocols essentially to deal with those kinds of patients. But as you start to segmenting your population to a certain degree, and there's things like EMTALA rules that you always have to be aware of, segmenting your population around what type of patient, whether it's an inpatient, behavioral health, emergency, you know, elective patient, creating those channels where there's less overlap, I think will get rid of a lot of those issues that people don't feel safe with that population. So I think that's going to be very important. Let me give you one more just quick example, if I may. You have your primary care practice, I think, on the 4th floor. So you have a clinic for family practice right now, which I believe when I read some of the documents is located on the 4th floor. That's not an ideal location. So basically those patients who are just coming in for an outpatient family practice clinic visit, you know, now have to go to sort of the main parking area, funnel the way up, hit an elevator, go to the 4th floor. You know, that kind of service, which is a primary care, low acuity checkup, those patients don't need to be involved with essentially the sort of bureaucratic flow of a hospital. And those inmate patients, those mental health patients, those disruptive patients, those sicker patients, they don't need to be exposed to those populations on a routine basis. So creating a space for that clinic where they can access it, and it's very clear when they come to the campus where that is, you know, and it's convenient for them to get in and out without having to go through the main hospital. I think that's a hugely important part of this.
Good point. Thank you.
So from a high-level strategy perspective, we're going to review that work that was completed in the last few years. We're going to look at some of the trends. We mentioned the presidential election up here, but that's just one example of the many things changing in healthcare. So that will impact you know, reimbursement in terms of, you know, how many insured patients you have, what is Medicaid going to look like, what is Medicare going to look like. A lot of that work HMA is doing is around future needs, and so we're going to be reviewing that work. And frankly, the important thing for us isn't, again, to reinvent what they're doing, but to make sure that's captured in the solution. So not, you know, when they identify that need, do we actually have a solution? Is that being integrated and captured in here? You know, a lot of work has been done with stakeholders. We need to make sure we capture that input. We also need to make sure that we work with the Blue Ribbon Committee that captures the patient viewpoint and make sure that they are heard in this process, because they are the ones who live and experience all this. I also want to just touch quickly on this sort of partnership opportunities, because when I think of partnership opportunities, my sort of strategic health care brain always goes to, okay, who's like the cardiology group I can work with, or who are my academic partners? And that stuff can be important to position yourself, because one thing I always encourage in this kind of process is you don't necessarily have to do everything yourself. If somebody else is doing it better and you can partner with them, then I think that can be just as an effective solution. So I would look at, and if you look at, so I would think of your partners as beyond just clinical partners. It's community partners. You know, that's a huge investment. And if you think again about what they're doing in San Antonio, that's a huge part of it. They're partnering with the police department. They're partnering with EMS. They're partnering with a lot of people in the community to devise essentially a comprehensive solution that frankly impacts your campus in a major way. And I think your job, you know, our job, in your job as you think about partners is to sort of facilitate a lot of that, not necessarily to have to do it yourself. So in terms of the network planning and analysis, and I've talked about this a little bit, so this again is that thinking about solutions that aren't just campus, because I don't want your 800 million or whatever the number ends up being, you know, that investment is so important. This is your one chance to position your system for 30 years. You know, you need to get it right, and you need to be looking at beyond just the campus solution. So how does that network impact it? And it's really bi-directional if you think about it. As you think of all the growth you've had, and now that you're up to 60 clinics, and there's physician shortages, and you're going to need to bring more physicians to the table. You know, you've got the third highest population of any county in the country. You're going to continue to grow. You're going to have shortages. You're going to need urgent care solutions. As you build up that's going to create more referral business to the main campus. So it impacts it that way. And then when I say bi-directional, you got to look at it the other way too. As you think about services that are on the campus, as healthcare moves to outpatient care, not all of those are appropriately delivered on the campus. So you need to move things off. So there's kind of two directions that you're impacting the campus. So thinking at it in that sort of more holistic way is important. So one way to do that is that what I call the current ambulatory site. So let's assess what you have there. How does that fit in? What is the best use of that? And how do you optimize that in the future? And then a step two, sort of how does that fit in? So there's sort of current state of A, and then there's future state of B. So how do you kind of get from A to B? You know, and that means identifying preferred locations to deliver care to your population, new care models, things like population health, technology considerations. Those are going to impact how you build sites, things like virtual care. You need to think through all of those things and how they impact what your sites look like and how you build them. But also leasing considerations. So if you think about your existing network, do we consolidate some of those sites? Do we expand some of those sites? Do we relocate some of those sites? You know, those are going to be considerations as well. And then finally, that sort of service mix, you know, as you're putting services out there. And on the front end of that, there's going to be different models like embedding behavioral health in your primary care practice and diagnostic testing and what you put in there. But you need to also make sure you have a fiduciary responsibility to create sort of a service mix that's kind of going to maximize payer reimbursement and keep you going as a viable entity for the next 30 years.
Do you consider transportation in your network planning?
Yes. So when we sort of say right locations, right, I think especially it's going to be important for you since you have a community mission to serve all of your patients. Those transportation points are going to be very important. So we are going to look at things like bus routes and any other transportation routes and think about how that might, you know, how is your community using those today and how does that impact where you locate sites?
Thank you.
So in terms of in terms of kind of a wrap up of all the work that's been done, the facility evaluations, the work for HMA, the work that Sam is talking about, this all kind of comes to play in terms of what's it going to cost, right? And I think you know, from Cummings' standpoint, this is one of our strengths. We've got the largest database of healthcare costs in the United States. We take that and we use that in a number of different ways. We use benchmarks out of that data to look at and evaluate current budgets and provide recommendations there. We also look at this market and we understand what market conditions are here, how busy is the market, what are materials and what are labor doing here, and we really incorporate that into our evaluation of the current budgets as they sit right now within the reports that have already been produced. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to do full updated budgets on those. So we're going to create a new budget of what we think those projects are going to cost. We're also going to, as part of the RFQ, they ask for a replacement versus renovate option. And we're going to do a full budget estimates based on the replacement option, based on the renovation option, and come back to you with what those cost differences are, and really allow, you know, the costs are one piece of that. Obviously, the operational impact to that is about 80% of any capital cost. So we're going to come back to you with kind of a comprehensive review of different options, and really we'll do that through a couple of tools that we have. I mentioned our database. The other tool that we use is a non-proprietary software called Deep Profiler, which is just an amazing software that we can look at. We can take the stacking and blocking diagram that you saw that Sam was talking about, and we can generate a full 350-page estimate based on what we know is going to need to go into that building. And so those are, you know, rubber meets the road a little bit with respect to what the costs are and different options there. So that's where we're gonna have some incorporation of all of the work that's been done to date, and really good analysis and recommendations to you in terms of what the probable costs are going to be for these projects.
In terms of coordinating work with HMA, we've talked a little bit about that, but you know, and that we're not going to duplicate the work. So in my view, I think the main piece that we need to do here is essentially translate what they're identifying as future needs that need to be addressed. You know, they're doing a community needs assessment of future needs. They're looking at that trends. They're looking at reimbursement. They're going to talk all about the impact of that. So how does that translate into solutions for your system? And how does that impact what's already been done? So that's really the main role as we look at their work and our part sort of integrating and bringing that work together. And we expect that that'll be a very close collaborative relationship with them. They're going to be around. They're going to be available to talk to and tap into that resource. So, you know, we certainly plan on taking full advantage of that and working very closely with them. And that will all come through in really an integrated final report. So it's not just going to be our piece. It's going to be taking the other pieces and integrating that into the final report so it looks like a seamless solution for the whole health system.
And that's one of the two things that we've really done since our last meeting is we've gone back and we've actually shortened our schedule up and we've aligned that with the meetings, anticipating that we're going to have joint meetings with HMA, joint presentations in terms of what work product they've done, what work product we've done, and do that all at the same time and report out to the group, whether it's Tarrant County or JPS or the Blue Ribbon Committee. That we'll do that in concert with them. I think the schedule is something that we've aligned there. I think the other thing, as Sam mentioned, is that we really anticipate now, you know, I think the idea, at least that we have, is that there was some indication of HMA was going to do their report, we were going to do our report, and then potentially you would need to hire an integrator to integrate the two reports together. We don't think that's necessary. We really think that what we're going to be doing with HMA is they may have Section 1 and Section 2, and we're going to have Section 3 and Section 4, and they're going to be cross-referenced, and we're going to do that as part of our work, and that really seemed to make a lot of sense to us in terms of how we you know, one of the ways to be able to integrate not just non-duplication of services, but also making sure that when the both of us are done, you have an integrated report that's ready to go. And you know, knowing time is an issue, we want to make sure that we put you in a position to be able to make your next decisions when you want to do that. I think the last slide for us really is kind of our key takeaways from our proposal and our presentation, and I think we kind of told you what we were going to tell you. Now we're going to tell you what we told you, type thing. I mean, these are this team really draws together expertise from several different types of work and pulls it all as one. And this is something that we've done a number of times. We have that years and years of experience doing this together. I think you also see from our map with more dots than I even thought about. You know, we really do have that national expertise that you've asked for in the RFQ. We go from coast to coast. Sam came in from Boston. I came in from California. So here it is right here, right? But we really bring in those experts. It doesn't necessarily translate from, you know, having 20 offices or something like that, but we do have the expertise as well. We've done this similar work before. We've done these peer review assignments for healthcare hospitals and healthcare systems from Kaiser to Harris County, and so I think those, you know, this type of work that you're asking us to do is something that we're very familiar with, and just, you know, it's the nail on the head in terms of what our expertise is. I think finally, you know, again, I said it, the ability for us to be able to provide you budgets that you have confidence in moving forward with in terms of making decisions is something that our company is founded on. We really do that from a standpoint, being in your shoes and making sure that we're providing good information so you can make good decisions.
Yeah, and I would just add, as you know, I think this is an exciting time for you. I know I get excited to talk about this stuff because this is what I love to do, and you know, I think this is just a huge opportunity for you guys to really set your direction, your blueprint for the next 10 years, the next 30 years, and you've already done a lot of good work. I think that's what's exciting to you. There's a lot of good stuff already done to build on. So, you know, I think I hope you're excited. I know it can be daunting as well, but I think, this is a great opportunity for you to sort of, and I think it's our responsibility to take all this good work that's already done, put it all together in a blueprint, and really sort of position you guys, so that you are set up for the future, but also in a dynamic, flexible way that allows you to sort of adapt to some of those future changes as well. So.
I have one final question,
Yep.
if I may. I'm quite puzzled why none of y'all have talked about security. Can you explain that? Are you planning to consider security into your planning?
No, absolutely, and I think that's, as part of the facility evaluation, we look at, how your facilities are set up right now. As part of the systems development, we also look at security systems from a labor and delivery unit all the way down to having the prisoners come in and out of the emergency department and how that is. So those are, I think those are, there's so many components, and hospitals are so complex. There's probably 2 or 3 other things that we haven't hit on.
You have a team member on your team that is an expert in security.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about from mass shooting to.
Absolutely, yeah, it's an integrated.
And who is that organization?
It's TCOM. They're the ones that do all the low voltage
TCOM
systems.
also security.
Yeah, so they do the security pieces as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Bill or mine area of expertise, but it is on our team. So that person's obviously not here today. It's also, and to be perfectly honest, we don't know, we haven't gone through all the plans done to date in sufficient detail to sort of understand what the security plans are today. So we want to see what's in there. Hopefully it's been addressed. If it hasn't been addressed, we certainly will make sure it is addressed. The other thing I would add on is that was a big part when I mentioned that work early on that I did for Harris County. That was a huge issue there as well. And you could see it when you went through the LBJ hospital, just the security issues and the flow and, patients going down the corridor, with shackles on their legs and the orange jumpsuits on. So making sure you manage that situation and understanding those sort of checkpoints and choke points and how you sort of navigate that through the system. That's absolutely going to be a part of this and integrated in this.
I would make that a top priority.
But let me ask a question though. In what I'm envisioning you're doing for us is evaluating you're melding together the HMA, you're looking at what had been proposed in the past and coming forward with potentially some recommendations.
Yes.
In Harris County, were you doing the same thing, or were you actually a part of designing? The decision was, we're going forward and we're designing this. Is that what you were doing with Harris County, or are you doing something similar to what you're talking about here?
No, actually, we were doing it more on the front end. So think of I think Blue Cottage did a lot of your operational planning, right? So we actually did it on the front stage planning. So in that particular situation, we did not have previous work or analysis done that we were supposed to review and validate. We actually did that work ourselves. We worked with clinicians on the floor, and we flow map. I don't know if you're familiar with flow maps, where you basically a person starts at point A and then they get hit. It's almost like a decision tree in their surface.
So when they did they ultimately go forward with the building and construction of what y'all reviewed, and if so, did y'all do that, or did some other organization do that?
Some other organization did do that. At that time, our engagement with the organization I was in was strictly an operational planning piece. So what we did was we outlined a plan to essentially renovate and the facility in such a way to optimize patient flow, and all those factors like security and other things were a consideration. And,
So that was a part of your presentation to Harris County. In this
Correct.
situation, you're going to be reviewing what the previous group did. If it's included, you'll evaluate it. If it
Correct.
wasn't included, you'll recommend it.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay.
We'll recommend a
Good
solution
question.
to identify that. If it's a gap in the planning that we don't feel has been adequately addressed, then we will bring it up and sort of present a solution to how to address that issue. If it has been addressed in some manner, then certainly we will comment on that and its level of adequacy and accuracy, et cetera.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank y'all very much.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
us.
it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Can we take about 15-minute break while we set the next?
That'll be great.
Okay, could I see you just a minute, Joe? Stop this farm.
That way we just approve it. Yeah.
GPS is pretty useful across the street.
A lot depends on which across the street you look at.
In the back of the room is one of my resolutions was to be nice to Robert early this year, but I'm done with that.
You're gonna break that one real quick.
He's partially responsible for global warming and probably the Cowboys did.
I'm sure there's a way we could tie this all together.
Donald Trump is your deal.
Come on, we'll just go ahead. He's not in his office? Well, if you looked in and you didn't see him, then that's probably a pretty good sign that he's not in the office. Let's go ahead and we'll kind of get started. Jim, go. We do things technical around here. Mr. Manius.
Thank you. So this is our second presenter, HOK. And what we'll ask you to do is to introduce yourself, who's going to be making the presentations. The way we've done it is that we will ask questions during your presentation and also at the end if there's additional questions. Okay?
Absolutely.
So let me turn it over to you. If you'll introduce yourself and we'll get going.
Very good. First, thank you very much for inviting us to visit with you this afternoon. My name is Yvonne Nagy. I'm with HOK. I am a principal in charge and will also be the project manager for the overall team for this assessment project. I am personally very excited to be here. This is a very exciting, important step that we're talking about this afternoon, so I am pleased as punch to be here and talking with you guys. I would like to introduce my co-presenters this afternoon. First, we have Dorothy Lloyd. Dorothy is with HOK. She is our strategic planner. She has done healthcare her entire career. She has seen and done pretty much every type of healthcare facility you can imagine, and she is a wealth of information. We also have Adam here, Adam Namonti with MEP CE. Many of you know Adam. Adam will be our MEP project manager, and I'm very pleased that Adam is joining us on this engagement because not only does he have a lot of experience in public health care, but he is also very familiar with JPS. And that knowledge of the hospital and its current systems will be invaluable as we take a look at that and analyze that.
And let me tell you a little bit about Yvonne. Not only is she our regional leader in Texas, because no one else could do the job as well as she does, but she's also a very strategic and critical thinker, and really knows healthcare, from the air that surrounds them all the way down to the medication cabinets and within. And what I really admire about her is her intuition has been so apparent in all of the project work that she's done, that she intuits when something's going to get out of line, and she gets into the line before it happens, are very, very important characteristic in a project manager.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you. So what is this project? Let's talk about what is this project. This is a facility assessment. This is a look at all of the buildings and facilities that JPS currently has, both in the medical center, the main campus, and then all of the various satellite buildings. And it's a look at, are they well-positioned, are they suitable for what JPS wants to do moving forward?
They are also, it's important to look at what the vision that you've created with your current master plan, and how are we going to meet that? We really understand that you do have a sense of healthcare in the community and a responsibility to deliver something that is really comprehensive in terms of a system-wide delivery. But I think it's also important to think about, you're looking at the future of the county, and whatever you come to a conclusion on, we are really looking for assisting you in this asset evaluation to ensure that you've got facilities that will be forward and future thinking. I think some of the things that, as Yvonne said, I've traveled all around the world doing this for different people, and I'm currently involved in a project in Canada where they get new facilities about every century. And so we're really looking at what it means to take something that we're looking at now and make sure that it works in 2050, 2060. So those are the kinds of clinical issues, as you're really, I'm a strategic facilities assistant to this project, is really to look at what's the total implications of what those facilities have to do, along with others that we are collaborating with.
And in regards to the MEP systems, since last time the systems were evaluated, it's really about changes and surprises. And the changes are environmental regulations have changed, energy codes have changed, building uses have changed. And this is really an opportunity to dive deep and see where those surprises may be. There may be equipment that have prematurely end of life. There may be equipment that have had poor maintenance. There may be equipment that parts are no longer available. So this is a chance to really understand what those issues are, address those, bring them out to everyone on the team, and help make decisions that are important to move forward and properly assess the equipment.
So before we begin to talk about the process and how we are proposing to do this, I wanted to talk a little bit also about some other team members that are not here with us today, but that are very valuable and important part of our team. There are 3 of us up here this morning, but we can't do it all, clearly. So we have HHS as our associate architect. HHS has been in business in Fort Worth for over 50 years. And Michael Hoffer, who's sitting in the back, will be our very important associate architect. Michael has been in practice for over 40 years himself, is a fantastic technical architect, and will be joining us as we walk all of the various facilities to help us assess the building needs. There's also Mitchell Equipment Planning. We recognize that while we're taking a look at the buildings themselves, medical equipment plays a huge role, both the medical equipment that we have today and seeing what its useful life is, in addition to costs that are associated with that and anything we need to look forward to. There's also Datum Gosier, if we need any sort of structural or civil analysis. And then perhaps most importantly is Project Cost Resources. They are a project costing firm that I've worked with throughout my career. They have many facility assessments and healthcare projects that they have done. They will be an integral part of the project throughout the entire duration. We will be working with them interactively. We will be providing them options, and then they will be coming back to us with real cost solutions so that we can make sure that we evaluate the cost implications of anything that we're exploring from the very beginning. So having said that, I'd like to talk a little bit about 4 key drivers that we have identified that we think are critical for the successful outcome of this project. This particular team is very excited to be presenting to you today. We have been interested in the progress of JPS and all of the things that JPS is talking about and thinking about. We've been attending board meetings and the HMA listening sessions to understand what the community is telling HMA. And so as we were putting our heads together before this presentation, we came up with 4 things that we think are really critical to hit well in order for this facility assessment to be successful. The first is speed. We recognize that this needs to be an efficient, quick process. We need to do this evaluation, do this assessment thoroughly, very thoroughly, but do it expeditiously and get on with it. Second is collaboration. We understand that there are a number of different stakeholders, HMA being a prime example, that we will need to work with intimately back and forth. So collaboration, true collaboration on this project will be very important. Third is cost. Talked a little bit about that, but cost is going to be very important. Let's face it, we can provide all kinds of solutions, but if they're not affordable and if they're not realistic, they're not going to happen. So we have to take a very close look at cost. And then finally is public support. Again, we know that if this solution or these solutions that we provide to you, if they are not in the best interest of Tarrant County, they're not going to happen. So public support is also very important. So let's talk about speed. All right. So with regard to speed, I think we all understand there has been a lot of really good work, thought, effort that's gone into the thinking of what JPS wants to be in the future. Starting in 2010, there was the Boca Powell Master Plan. There was the broadest Blue Cottage update in 2014. Now we have HMA, who's doing all kinds of good information and data collection, recently retained. So there's a wealth of information out there. We are not suggesting that we are starting over. What we see this project to be, this assessment to be, is to take a look at all of that information and then take a look at what hasn't been assessed. For example, the satellite or community locations, and see how what the building's useful life is. Is that suitable for what JPS is planning to do in the future? If it's not, then we can make some recommendations. But it's a validation and it's a filling in of the blanks of all of this really fantastic work that has gone before.
And in addition, our stalking of your Board of Managers meetings has really been, as Yvonne said, to learn about who you are and what's important to you. And we have seen some of the things that we've read in the master plans that have been done now in action as staff tries to plan and get lean and look at their operational value and how things are going to work. And I think that's really an incentive for us to really support them in providing facilities that really meet what they think should be what they think is appropriate to really deliver the most cost-effective and efficient service.
So the way we propose to do that is with a 4-month schedule. This is a schedule that we think is doable. We think it's realistic. We think it's the appropriate amount of time that we need to spend the time doing the various different aspects of it, and I'll talk through each of those aspects here in a second. I very much appreciate the discussions we had before the holidays with GK, and we understand clear as a bell that this is a facility assessment, and the first part of that we need to make sure happens from the very beginning, and again, I mentioned throughout the duration of the project, is collaboration. So that's something that we will do from day one through the completion of the project. That will be with HMA, certainly from the get-go, until they are finished with their scope of work. It will be with JPS to gain access to some of those facilities that we need to schedule. It will be presentations to the Blue Ribbon Committee. It will be presentations to whoever else needs to be involved, but collaboration will be something that will be paramount throughout the entire duration. Second will be the actual facility evaluation. And this, again, is where we go to the various facilities and actually walk them, take a look at them, and document empirically what we're finding so that it is not a subjective commentary or a subjective evaluation of how the facilities are performing. It will be a fact-based empirical survey. Third will be the actual facility strategy. So this is after we understand what the current facility portfolio has to offer and where there might be some opportunities to make either additions or renovations. This is where we start taking a look at, having worked with HMA throughout this, take a look at what the actual facility strategy might be, then really understanding what we have and what HMA is seeing as the future, where that comes together.
We truly want to make this a more collaborative stage because you know what your service delivery model is, and you know with HMSA's help you've really been understanding how these should be distributed. But this point is really our opportunity to look at what are the highest and best uses of each of the facilities you own and how well they meet the goals of the organization.
And then the last step will be the evaluation report. That's where we wrap up all of our findings, the facility assessment portion for you, as well as the recommendations, and wrap it up and then provide it to you for your use for whatever next steps are appropriate for JPS. We think we can do that in 4 months. We think we can do that because we've done that with other facilities where we have done this similar process and it has worked very well. We think 8 weeks for the actual facility assessment portion is about right. Of course, we understand we will have to work with JPS to get access to the buildings, so there will be flexibility in this, and there will need to be some give and take. That's fine, but the 4-month duration right now, knowing what we know, seems about what we need.
So let me tell you a little bit about Jackson Health, the county facility for Miami-Dade County, and a project that we are currently engaged on as the architect of record. But in fact, we started with them in October of 2014 to evaluate what they had in terms of facilities. The important issue is they already had their bond in place, and they really didn't know how they were going to implement what to do. So we sat down with them, and in 2.5 months, in 2 months, we sat down and we looked at all of their facilities. They have 3 major academic medical centers where they teach, as well as 40 outpatient facilities, interestingly enough, very close to what you have. And we went through all of that with them in looking at what we could do to meet the specific aspects of the strategic plan that had been developed and to get those facilities to align with that. So that really allowed us to do something that was very quick, but it was also very collaborative because it had to be fast. And that's one of the things as we move forward, we really need to talk about collaboration. So that's the second driver, is collaboration. There's many people that will be engaged in this process from time to time throughout it. But right now we're most interested in our work with HMA because they're really giving us one side of an equation that's really important. We used to build facilities that were boxes. And you could have this size of box, you could have this size of box, but in the end, they were all very, very similar. Somebody tried to actually market that 20 years ago and say, buy one of our clinic buildings. But really what we're looking at now is this future forward thinking of how do we take your business model, how do we take your strategic service distribution, and really provide the facilities that work for that area while maintaining flexibility so that they can continually meet that need as populations grow or contract. So I think those are having that thorough understanding of service requirements that HMA brings to this is really critical to the success of our collaboration.
Talking about collaboration, I'd like to have a moment to talk a little bit about commentary on it. Perhaps you hear a lot about talking about collaboration. My experience is that real collaboration can sometimes be pretty difficult. It is not something that just happens. In my very best experiences with collaboration, it's something that the entire team needs to buy into. It requires team members to put forward their very best opinions, but also make sure that those are valued by everybody who is receiving those, and consider those properly and consider those respectfully. I think that when real collaboration happens, it is a fantastic, fantastic tool, because every time that I've seen that happen, the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts that could have been put together by themselves. And so that's one of the reasons that we feel so strongly about setting up a collaborative team environment from the very beginning.
So at the end of this, we'll have the benefits of really having a clear understanding of what it is that's required for service delivery in Tarrant County. We can align the clinical and community needs that HMA has very thoroughly researched with what we have in terms of what you have in terms of assets, and how those assets really align with those needs, and then begin to look at this strategic facility assessment of what do you do in order to bridge that gap between what's existing and what needs to be. So, another example, Indiana University. This is project, again, we've been working with them for almost 10 years, and they have 2 major inpatient hospitals, and over the course of this discussion, they have really walked through the steps of what population health requires, and working with their strategic planners have begun to dispense services from the inpatient areas to some of the outpatient services to ensure that they use the resources correctly and that they have the right people in the right place at the right time, and the patients are coming to the right facility to get the level of care they need. It's been a very collaborative process. You can understand that you've got state people who are interested in what the budgets are. We've got university people who are interested in the academic value and the research that goes on in these institutions, as well as the fact that we have a number of institutions who are coming into this organization to be part of it and to become part of this IU system, which will now serve all of Marion County. It's a really exciting project. We're very privileged to be part of watching how this has worked over the last 10 years. And we're happy to bring that knowledge to this arena as well.
Let's talk about cost. Cost is next. Cost, as I mentioned, is going to be critical to this. Engaging project cost resources from the beginning and having them work in tandem with us, in addition with Mitchell for medical equipment, I think is something that's going to be, as I mentioned, very important to the successful delivery of a complete and proper evaluation report for you. As I mentioned, any project recommendations are going to need to have real dollars associated with them. They need to have accurate dollars. And the reason I'm excited about project cost resources working with us is because they don't just cost healthcare, they cost healthcare in Tarrant County. And then they take a look at what's happening in the rest of North Texas that might affect any construction costs that might be incurred with any new buildings or any renovations. So we will take a look, of course, at the buildings, and then if the recommendation is renovation or perhaps an addition, if it's that the building has outlived its useful life, or maybe the building's perfectly fine, all of those scenarios will be looked at, but we need to understand the cost that's associated with each one so that when we provide you with our recommendations, there is real empirical data there that can be utilized, whether it's short-term or long-term. So project cost resources involvement with us and Mitchell's involvement with the team from the very beginning will be critical to making sure that we provide you a realistic and solid evaluation that you can use for next steps.
And a part of that cost is it's not only the bricks and mortar. I think also the actual experience of clinical planning in a number of different arenas is really important to continually remind ourselves that it's also how much is it going to cost to run it. We've all seen those pie charts, I'm sure, that say, it's 1% of the total lifetime costs of a building that you put into the facilities. But that 1% is so critical to how fast the 99% rises. So we wanted to add that as an aspect of commentary on how we evaluate each of our decisions.
And unfortunately, MEP costs are a major component of a building, not just upfront costs, but life cycle costs as well. And we have the luxury of working in the private industry and in the public industry. And in the private industry, we're always challenged to really reuse as much of that infrastructure as possible. And we see so many times when a building is low on capacity or needs to have some additional equipment added, they're increasing, changing out electrical systems, and I always ask myself, why? Why can we not reuse this material? Copper is copper. It's been around here for a long time. It's going to be here longer than all of us. So let's reuse that. Let's repurpose that as much as possible. And also look for opportunities, unique situations, such as we just recently completed Taylor Street parking garage for Tarrant County, got 15% of the cost rebated from Encore. Or last year we did the paralleling of the generators at JPS, and now the JPS can go completely off grid, and ERCOT is paying them each year to reserve that capacity. So there's unique opportunities with the systems that we can do to get funding for these projects.
I see our responsibility in delivering the report to provide solutions that are not only clinically appropriate for JPS delivering care for Tarrant County going forward, but also fiscally responsible. And we take that responsibility very seriously. A good example of where we have done this with other facilities is Harris Health. This is, it used to be called Harris County Hospital District. It's now called Harris Health. It's the public county hospital in Harris County, Houston, Texas. And several years ago, we were fortunate enough to be engaged to do a assessment similar to this. We worked with their clinical planners, and in tandem, we were able, after looking at their various hospitals, and they, I believe, had 13 different satellite clinics or off-site locations, so slightly smaller than JPS, but looking at what they had and looking at what they were able to reuse, we were able to suggest a solution that realized a 45% reduction in the amount of capital expenditure they were planning to spend for the next 10 years. So that's a huge reduction by taking a look at what they had and how they might be able to reuse it and not putting money forward to new buildings that were not necessary.
I think it's really important to remember that we really look at trying to design to cost and not cost our designs. And while that isn't specifically part of this, we know how important it is to you to have a really effective cost measure that is data-driven and completely understood, because you need to get your public support. And this is always the hardest thing, is how do we really engage the public in this very, very important process. Public health is certainly a public issue, and I know that we haven't had full support in the community of Tarrant County for this hospital, but I think if we actually started to look at what they were objecting to, it wouldn't be the fact that they didn't want to have a healthy environment for all of us and all of you to grow up or live in and work in, and so that is, I think, what we're really looking at here. It's something that we really need to look at in terms of action. What do we really need to do to enliven the discussion, to incorporate what a health system really delivers?
And I'd add on to that, in regard to public support, we also take this very personally. Several of our team members live here in Fort Worth. Several of our team members live in Tarrant County, and they rely on and work with and receive care from the JPS system. So this is not just something that is ethereal or someplace else. I mean, this is something that's very close to us. So we understand that this is a big discussion in the community, and we believe that a empirically based, fact-based evaluation with real costs will provide guidance for those next steps, whatever they might be that are appropriate for moving JPS forward to continue to provide excellent care for the patients and community of Tarrant County going forward.
In 2 words, it needs to be bulletproof so that you guys are truly you truly have the facts you need to explain how this works. And we don't, we haven't made the decisions, you haven't made the decisions, but you need to have that empirical, fact-based, data-driven, principled accounting of what the next step should be. So in that, it's really how do we explain that and what the response is, and that's where the principle comes in. What are really we looking for? You have guiding principles in your master plans that are truly valid. And how is it that you're going to create a new environment that truly meets those guiding principles? It doesn't mean that it has to be the most expensive building on the planet. It means that it has to work well. And it works well with the right asset allocation in terms of your buildings, with the right staff that will be able to develop a sustainable model of care delivery over time, and the right business model to ensure that you've got the right services in this area. And now we get to my favorite project, Eskenazi Health. Eskenazi, very similar situation to you. They were a community hospital that you may remember Wishart in Indianapolis. And they were at a point where Wishart was really not going to be a usable facility for very much longer. In a Hail Mary, they hired a new director, a new CEO, and that CEO said, no, this is a community hospital, it's very important to us. We need to figure out how to do this. It was so hard to pick the picture that speaks what this hospital is. In the evolution of the project, again, with the collaboration of the community and the adjacent university facilities, this facility has been entirely rebuilt at a very modest cost, but it has become part of the community. And when you look at the pictures you're looking at right now, this is a community garden. It serves a lot of the food banks in the county. We've got joggers that jog by in the river every day. They sometimes stop because the cafe opens onto a public square, and the square is there for people to enjoy the sun. It's beautiful. And it's the place where I learned the meaning of the word stochastic, which is if you have little moving trees doing this random movement, all of a sudden you just sort of calm down. So those are the kinds of things that we really want to explore with you to see where we can help you make this a broader part of what the community expects and invests in JPS Health.
So those are the 4 key drivers that we identified from thinking and learning about JPS in Tarrant County over the last 3 years. Now let's talk about how we actually make that happen. Let's talk about the process. So I mentioned collaboration. That is the first key element that will need to happen throughout the life of the process. The second bit is the facility evaluation. And I'd like to talk a little bit more in depth about what that means and what that looks like. I mentioned that we would be visiting all of the various sites, but when we do that, we will be looking for quantifiable elements of the building that will determine whether or not the building is suitable for JPS going forward. For things like, is the roof still good? How is the windows? Is there leaking? Any code violations? Is it appropriate for clinical care? Is it appropriate for what is planned for that building? And as importantly, is it in the right spot? Is it best there, or would it be better perhaps 3 miles away because that's a better location for that particular service in that particular area? So we will look at the quality of the building and its useful life and suitability for JPS, as well as the location. And if there is any gap between where it is and where it might want to be, we would then provide some recommendations for that. We're going to do all of that in an electronic format. We're going to use an electronic tablet like an iPad to designate all of the various rankings that we do. So if a roof is in poor condition, a roof is in good condition, a roof is in fair condition, and then what does that mean? How many years does that mean? What does that look like? And to really explain how all of this technological tablet stuff works, I'm going to ask Adam, our resident technical geek. Let's go ahead and use that word, but okay, yes, thank you. Technical geek, would you please?
Sure.
Well, all of our staff will be fitted with these little tablets, and there's a lot of great benefits to this. One, update software later, but so we'll have all of the buildings programmed in here of what we're going to go out and look at. And when we go to that building, it's got just a little bit of information if we need to change any of the data that we thought we would expect to see when we go out to the site. And when we're at the site, we go up in there, and I'm just going to select, for example, electrical equipment, and it gives me all the items that I'm going to be looking for. And when I find that piece of equipment, it tells me exactly what the information is I need to collect. It gives me a rating and tells me what defines what as far as a good, a poor, or a fair. Allows me to add a picture, allows me to add comments. If you have a barcode system, it allows me to photograph the barcodes. And what this really does is allows our team to comprehensively and accurately collect all of the information in a very timely manner.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When we've got 60-plus facilities, I guess, at what level do you start evaluating the equipment? I mean, do you evaluate the $200 piece of equipment, or do you spend your time more on the $20,000 piece of equipment up? And what gets evaluated, what doesn't? Because if you evaluated everything, you're not going to do this in 4 months. I don't care who you are.
Correct.
Right. So I would answer that. We would be looking at the large ticket medical equipment. For any particular clinic type or any particular service line, there are certain known pieces of equipment that will go with that sort of clinic model. So, for example, if it was an imaging center, we would look at the CT or the MRI or the PET scan or whatever we have. We know that there's going to need to be secondary or supplemental equipment that goes with that. And just by walking the facility, they can get a pretty good idea of where that stands, and we can factor that in. But it would be the big ticket, the really expensive stuff that, is not a $200, blood pressure cuff, but the big stuff.
And on the MAP systems, Uniformat provides an outline of 4 different levels of assessment. And normally, the big ticket items that we discussed are items that each individual component will get assessed, because an equipment overall condition may look good, but a certain individual component may not be good. And we need to capture that because it could be a choke point. And so the key items are going to be collected. Then on the other items that are the $200 items, the tablet actually allows us to put in there just a general information about an overview of those items. So it's just letting us know the general condition, but not really diving into diving deep into the components.
You mentioned when you first started speaking, or one of you, that there's certain equipment that parts are no longer available, manufacturers are no longer around. Right. Is that fairly common?
Well, we see it a lot in electrical equipment distribution, electrical breakers. Usually, there's manufacturers such as Federal Pacific, for example, that used to, every project in Fort Worth ISD has Federal Pacific equipment, but no longer around. And so getting those parts becomes a little bit difficulty. And same with the electronic breakers nowadays. On a lot of retrofit projects, usually you have to go through a used breaker broker to even get components. That's how old and antiquated are. And there are techniques that we can do, from bus tapping to other situations like that, but it's something that we're aware of, and luckily we'll have the photographs and we'll have the data that all of our senior engineers will be able to go through as part of the control process and identify those.
Thanks.
We once had a client in rural Quebec that was replacing their boiler, and they couldn't find a part. They found it on eBay. Yeah. So eventually that happens.
Whatever you want, they got it.
I guess the other thing I'd like to say just before we move off of this is in regard to thoroughness of facility assessment. I think it's very important that we do a very thorough facility assessment to understand what's really in these buildings. Personal story for me, doing work for UT down in Galveston, there was, this was many, many years ago, a project where the assessment hadn't been thorough, and when we started doing demolition for a renovation in one of their buildings, we found a very large roof drain that came down right through the clinic. And so the planning for that clinic had been a big open space for various activities, and we couldn't give them that. So I am a big proponent of a very thorough evaluation now, so we know what's there, and there are no surprises if demolition happens or if renovation happens, that we can minimize those as much as possible. And understanding what those are now, we can put costing to that now to help inform whether or not that's a good space or a good building for reuse for whatever is being considered for that. So then after we understand all of the buildings, we're then going to go to the facility strategy portion. And this is not that we're not collaborating with HMA all along the way, but this would be a focused couple-of-day work session with HMA.
Yes, as Yvonne just said, we know that HMA is participating. We know that they've been on site for a while, and we're really looking forward to the point of understanding how we can continually collaborate with them as we go through this. That's a very good reason to shorten the process so that we get enough information so that we can really have a productive discussion between what's required for the service delivery requirements and what the community wants and what the assets can deliver. So it's also a little bit about operational costs, that we have this overview to ensure, that, again, that you have got that future-proofing in whatever we do to make it as clear as possible what we anticipate. We talk a lot these days of this may be my computer or this pen or this book. All we know is that the technology world is moving so quickly, and information is so critical to delivery of healthcare services at any time, that we want to be sure you're as prepared as possible with this asset strategy.
So then after that phase, we would then start in the actual assessment evaluation report. And the way we propose to do that is to pull together a draft report before the final report and then issue that for comment. We don't want there to be any surprises in the final report. We welcome feedback and will ask for feedback from all the appropriate reviewers. We'll then take that feedback and then incorporate it into the final assessment report and then provide that to you for your use going forward in whatever next steps are appropriate. So before I ask for questions, I just wanted to say, again, thank you very much. We really appreciate being invited to speak with you today, to talk with you today. This is a very exciting project for all of us. We recognize that this is a big deal for Tarrant County, big deal for JPS. We are very eager to assist you with this. As Dorothy's examples show, HOK does a lot of public healthcare work that is sort of a core type of healthcare that we do. We all believe in it. We all work on it. We all like to do it. And so we would very much like to assist you in your process going forward. At this point, I would welcome any questions.
Would you please share with us the technology side as well as the security side of your assessment? How do you consider those areas? And do you have any internal expertise in those areas?
That's a great question. And let me start, and then I will ask Adam to chip in from the engineering technical point of view. Yes, we have 2 individuals on our team who both specialize in IT futures as well as security. And we anticipate that we will be working with both of those individuals to understand what sort of IT-type systems healthcare might be seeing in the future and evaluate. For example, if we find a building needs a little bit of renovation for a proposed use, it's a community center and it needs some minor renovation for a new public health clinic, whatever. We would take a look at what we're seeing across the nation with regard to IT and IT futures and put into our assessment and our cost, the cost for those sorts of systems that we could anticipate you needing at a future date. That doesn't mean that we would specify the system. It doesn't mean that we would actually design the system, but we would make a provision that you would be positioned to be ready for that, knowing about what that would cost and about the physical ramifications of that if and when this new building gets renovated. Same thing from a security point of view. JPS is a public hospital. We understand the emergency room. I have seen your emergency room. I know that security is a big deal for all healthcare. And so we have a gentleman who is an expert on security and healthcare security specifically. And that would be something that we would take a look at when we're doing the evaluation of the various sites. If there's something that pops out at us that says, wow, you know, this really seems like this might not be the safest way to do it, we will certainly make that recommendation. We will note that and offer some recommendations to change that.
Fortunately, we're very familiar with the gentleman that she mentioned. We just recently did the security upgrades with that team at Dallas City Hall, so we understand how to work together collaboratively. And then on the technology side, we're really going to be looking for what's in the future. We, in our projects, we're seeing Wi-Fi bandwidth as critical for all aspects of it, whether it's in rooms like this where people may have tablets and cell phones, that type of coverage, to medical imaging equipment, transmission of records. And so we really see as investment in Wi-Fi as being a critical component of buildings moving forward. So to evaluate that, see what kind of capacity you currently have, how can we maximize those equipment that we're currently utilizing, and what is there cheap security things that we can do now to allow us to have that infrastructure in the future, whether it's just pathways or additional data drops for that Wi-Fi coverage, and looking at also other types of trends in the medical imaging as well.
What role locally will Hollandville offer and Stanford play?
So HHS is our, as I mentioned, our associate architect, and they will be with us the entire time. So Michael and his team will be visiting the various sites. We will have somebody also in representation. MEPCE will have somebody along. Medical equipment will have somebody along. Obviously, for a central plant, there's probably not medical equipment there, so maybe not everybody goes to everything. But all of the various disciplines that are appropriate to evaluate a particular location will be there together. HHS will also be very involved as we start to take a look at what those facility strategies are for the various locations in the community. Because, as I mentioned, obviously, Michael lives here and Adam lives here. The people who will be working from those firms live here and can provide a very intimate, in-depth understanding of that community overlay that I think is very important. So they will be hand in glove the entire time.
Okay, thank y'all very much. We appreciate you being a part of this. GK, anything else at this point in time?
Not at this time. If you'll simply fill out your evaluation sheets and give them to me.
Okay.
And then we'll move forward on that.
Okay, then.
Not right now. Yes, sir.
Then with that, and there being no further business to bring before the court, we stand adjourned. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the time.